Hey there, Dave Melinda, Positive Polarity Podcast. Hope things are going awesome for you. I have to say, for those of you that can't see me today, I'm bringing what I am going to need today. It's a box of Kleenex because we are going to talk about breakups, and they're not going to be the normal type of breakups. I have a special guest in today that's going to talk about the corporate breakup. I'm honored to be hanging out with Katrina Roddy. How are you today?
Oh, well, thanks for asking. I like
Absolutely.
the I like the tissue and everything. Get
Well,
it
I
get
figured I
it
better
going.
use it because I don't know. I'm kind of nervous about this. Normally, I have a pretty good handle on our topic, and I'm excited each week to bring them. This one, I have to say, I'm a little nervous about just because breakups aren't fun for people.
No,
So,
they're not.
so fill us in on what the corporate breakup actually means, Katrina.
I sure will. Let me start off by just giving you my full intro.
Yeah.
Katrina Roddy, I'm best-selling author of a book called Steal Your Skills from Corporate, and I'm also an entrepreneur coach. And I coach on the mindset that it takes to transition from corporate into becoming what I like to call the CEO of your life.
Excellent.
So I spent 30 years in corporate America before I decided to take my craft, or I could say my skills, and married them to my entrepreneur spirit to become an entrepreneur coach. But on that journey, Dave, I found out that there is anxiety, there is sleep disturbances, there's anger, there's all of these things when people get laid off from corporate. It's a breakup. And nobody really acknowledges it, that it's the same breakup as if you've had with a relationship, any type of separation like that. However, it seemed to be handled a little bit differently. So when you break up with, your partner, there could be someone that comes over and they bring you wine, they bring you a box of tissue, they
That's what I
bring
did.
you ice cream, you dance, you cry, all of that
Sure.
stuff happens, and they tell you to work on yourself before you move to the next person. Like all of these things come out, and the best advice ever comes out. And when you break up from corporate, they're like, that girl better find a job. We don't know what she's doing these days. So I don't feel that that support is always there.
Sure.
And so
That's a
my
great
company
point.
is the corporate breakup, because I really hone in on trying to make sure people transition well and they get the support that they need to be uplifted and be able to go into another career.
Wow, that's so cool. There is a ton there. So thank you so much for
Sure.
sharing that information. So, think about it. So you kind of connect the personal breakup to the corporate breakup. And so, I know that when somebody gets let go from a job, I think their first thought is hopefully what did I do wrong or what could I have done better?
Yeah.
Um, so are you kind of helping with that self-reflection right up
Yes.
front with people?
Yeah, absolutely. Dave, I went through it. I mean, when I say I spent 30 years in corporate, I did corporate insurance right out
Okay.
of high school.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, the college that I'd gone to, they placed us in, they did job placement right away, and that job would become one of your classes. So they would report back to the school if she's dressed appropriately for business,
Oh,
if she's
wow.
learning the lingo, if she's learning, these things. So
Sure.
that's how I
Sure.
started so early and got up to that number 30 pretty quickly. But when I finished, I worked in a pretty high profile part of corporate insurance, which we call national accounts or major accounts.
Okay.
So we provided insurance for like the Costco's of the world, Discover Card, these Sears, all of these major companies.
Okay.
So what I did know for sure is that I was a damn good relationship manager, because I had
Okay.
to manage those relationships. So when they were ready to, we just kind of thought naively in our group that we bring in the most money to the company. We have these solid relationships. The clients look for us.
Sure.
No, they probably won't touch us for, and that stood true for a while. And then companies go through structure. It's inevitable that they're going to
Yeah.
go through some type of structure that doesn't involve you. And they came to us and said, hey, guess what? We're restructuring. We're not really sure we're going to need sales execs anymore. And
Wow.
that just kind of blew up my world. So at that point, what I knew for sure is that I had been in it so long. I've seen the rotation of people in and out. I've
Sure.
seen the rotation of something that they were doing now. They did it already back in the night. You
Yeah.
could see that happening. And I decided I didn't want to go back to corporate. So I just took everything I had and said, I know I have these skills. I know I can do these things. And that's when the book was formed. I put it in a book.
Wow.
I put it in a book.
So that, I mean, so you took, it's interesting, the wording that you used is you took everything you had.
Yep.
Excuse me. So financial,
Yep.
spiritual,
Yep.
education,
Yeah.
your drive, I mean, you took everything. And I think that's where some people maybe go wrong, is they don't do this all in.
Yeah.
And if you're doing a side hustle now, and you're listening and that's cool with that, that's great. I mean, you know what, if you don't have that passion to jump in with both feet, it's hard to do an entrepreneurship in your life when you just dip a toe in occasionally into the
Yes.
water, right?
Yeah.
so
And
if I come to you and said, hey, I'm Katrina, I'm thinking about this, I think I want to do it, I mean, are there some questions, or are there some like homework, or what do you do with somebody that's at that brink, looking over the edge, not
yeah.
sure if they want to jump in?
Well, so people come to me after they have determined that what they want to do,
Okay.
but some of them still have one foot in the door.
Yep.
And that's harder because, I mean, I can tell you, and this is from personal experience, I didn't know how to jump out with both feet. So I thought my natural progression was to be an independent contractor working for another company,
Sure.
but they considered us independent contractors. So on tax forms, it was a 1099.
Yep.
So there was a confusion for me because I felt like I worked for a company, but then they also was like, you got to pay for your own desk. You got to pay for your own. They're like, you're like an
Yeah.
entrepreneur. And I
Sure.
was like, nah. So that only lasted for so long
No
before I
kidding.
decided, okay, I got to have both feet in because I can be most creative when I have both feet in. So
Yes.
when I talk to individuals who come to me, the first thing I say is I hear their career, and most of it comes from experience. There's
Mm-hmm.
something that they've liked doing over the years and they want to continue to do that and make it into a business. So the first question I always ask is, um, what problem are you solving? What problem are you solving for individuals? For me, the problem I'm solving is people want to come out of corporate, but they don't know how.
Sure.
And so I'm helping them understand these are some steps that you can take to make that transition. And along the way, hey, you're going to experience these things if you haven't experienced them already. Let me help you get through that as well. Does that make
So
sense?
yeah, no, that's awesome. And that makes complete sense. I'm trying to understand why um like breakup is such like a permanent thing.
Yeah.
It's such a devastating thing. It's a pretty big deal for a lot of people.
Yeah.
So, I mean, maybe can we call it like the corporate separation? I mean, it's so funny because
Whatever.
like
Yeah,
it's
it's
like I
still a
love
point.
it, and that's why I wanted to unpack this with you today.
Yeah.
There's people that are going, "Oh my gosh, hold on a second here, Katrina. Let's just kind of take a step back."
Yeah.
And so I'm just curious. It seems so permanent. A breakup seems so permanent.
Yeah.
How did that evolve for you? Is it personal experience, or how did that evolve into this?
Yeah, so it was personal experience.
Okay.
And I would say when I started working as an independent contractor, maybe that was my corporate separation
Okay.
because I still had some tie to it and I still wanted to feel like I was part of something. But then the entrepreneur spirit that I had kind of kicked in more and I wanted
Okay.
to be more creative. And the contract work I was doing didn't allow me to.
Yeah. Okay.
So when I say breakup, it's only permanent because you decided that you didn't want to go back to corporate. You've
Sure.
made that decision. A lot of people that I train with, they're my age and they've been in it for a while and they're ready for something different. What I will say is, I've studied through the American Psychology Association, and I've read some articles through there that said, first of all, corporations are going to go through this. It's inevitable. They're going to have
Mhm.
these, and we have no
Sure.
control over that as an
Sure.
employee. But what I found most astounding is you have the person that is still sitting at the job that has the same anxiety, anger, buildup as the person who left the job
Okay.
because now they're bombarded with, I got extra work I have to do. When is it my turn? they go through this whole anxiety thing, and it's really not, it's more of, when I wrote the book, Dave, I really set out to help people pull their skills and have their skills and help them understand what skills they have to create the career that they want. But what it ended up being was I'm really helping them with the fear of transition.
Okay.
That's point blank. That's really what
Sure.
it is. Because it's going from an environment that was very structured to
Yeah.
something where you're like, you're the person that does everything now.
Yeah. Is that what you referred to on your website as the golden handcuffs?
Yes. A lot of
So
people
that,
in corporate feel that they have golden
okay.
handcuffs.
So what does that mean? Unpack that for us.
Okay. So when you're working in corporate, I've had golden handcuffs and someone pointed them out to me because I didn't know.
Thanks a lot.
Because they're all diamondy and they're gold and they're pretty.
Yeah.
But at one point, I worked for one company, and I was in every program they could have, right? So I was in an apprentice program, and I was very young. So I was an apprentice at one point. I was in their future leaders program. I was in all of these programs, and I felt really good.
Yeah.
But it was almost like we keep putting you in things that will make you feel good so that you'll stay.
Yeah.
So we consider those to be golden handcuffs because we're enticing you with little things that will help you stay and keep you kind of trapped to that organization.
Sure.
Until one guy, he was in the same programs as I am. He's like, you do know these are golden handcuffs, because we're a little bit frustrated in them, but they give you a little bit more. And you're like, well, I can deal with it because they gave me this. Or I
Sure.
can deal with it because they gave me this. It's one of
Yeah.
those things, but you're
Sure.
really kind of stuck.
Wow.
So that's what that kind of means too.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's such a great visual now that you share that with me.
Yeah.
I'm going to steal that. Is that okay if I tell other people
Yeah.
about that? Okay.
You can look it up.
Don't worry. I'll give you, Katrina,
Don't give me credit. Look it up in Webster's. There's a definition for it.
Which of course you created, I'm sure. So that's good. That's awesome. No, so the kind of the reverse of that though is like, I'm trying to think of like in a breakup when somebody, I think there's a big difference whether you do the breaking up or you are the one broken up on, I guess, if that's the right word.
Yeah.
I mean, do you treat people differently if they decided to quit versus somebody that decided for them? Is there a big difference in how that works?
No, because it's still separation.
Okay.
So
Gotcha.
whether I decided to leave or they left me, in my case, there's still some type of separation that you miss. You miss your friends. A lot of people will come to me and, when I go through that question and say, how did you feel, when your breakup happened?
Sure.
Oh, I was excited because I was ready to leave. I was this, but there's a part of it that they still miss.
Yeah.
You're not getting a check every 2 weeks. You're not getting, you have a schedule. Now you got to figure out your own schedule. You have, this is an interesting story about, there's a young lady that I was talking to on Clubhouse one day, and she was pretty high executive. And I was going through a workshop that I had created called time management. And so I was just going through some basics of the workshop. But one thing, that I want to point out to people is use a calendar. Calendars will help you. They have these reminders or whatever. So there's a lady that got on and she's like, Katrina, I get up in the morning. I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. Like she quit her job and she's like, and I just feel like I'm not doing anything. And, she started feeling a little depressed because she wasn't in an environment that had her on a schedule. Sure. And I just simply said, hey, are you still using your calendar? And she's like, no. And I said, that's why you're not filling your day up. So you feel like you're doing nothing. And now you feel I'm supposed to be doing something. So it's just a matter of tweaking your brain to say, sure, this is mine now. I can take control of it. But she was one who had broken up with her job and then got to a point where she was still feeling a little bit of a low.
And how do you, I guess my question that pops into my head is, how do you not take it personal? If somebody breaks up with you, it's like, how do you not take that personal? I know that from a guy's perspective, and probably shouldn't even say this, so whatever, I'm going to say it anyway. From a guy's perspective, we're going to be like, I'm going to totally want to deflect that. Yeah. I'm so glad she broke up with me. I was going to break up with her anyway. I'm not happy anyway. I mean, it's real easy to deflect.
That's
in
part
that
of that
breakup.
grieving stage. That's part of the
Yeah,
grieving stage where you blame them. They're like, they're not going to do well without me,
yeah,
kind of thing.
exactly. Yeah, the company's not going to make it without me.
My company's
Been
going
around for
down.
100 years, but
They
hey,
got
they're
rid
done
of
after
me.
me, right?
Yeah, but that's
Yeah,
part of the healing process. It's part of grief.
sure.
You want to deflect and make it seem like, so for me, it was a team of us that left and I
Okay,
still took it personal. I'm
sure,
like, well,
sure.
what do you mean? I just had the best review of my life. You
Yeah,
can't be
yeah,
talking to me. And they're like,
yeah.
yeah, honey, you're part of it. So
Wow.
it is personal, even though there could be groups that they let go. Think of 2020, they just let go of groups of people and shut down departments because they are trying to make a profit and they have to figure out which way to do it.
Sure.
So I don't think there's a way to not make it personal. The thing that I want people to understand is once you can take it personal, but then you have to release that in order
Hmm.
to heal. You have
Yeah,
to release that and say, it's take your severance then could become your savior if you got severance.
sure,
Make your
sure.
severance your savior, or just say this door closed, but it could be because there's another door opening up for you. Make yourself available for that. You don't know. You don't
Well,
know.
you bring up a great word, the release piece. Some people never let that go. I mean, I've run into people that haven't worked at a company for years, but they still hold animosity. They still hold, I mean, if they could find a way to stab the owner of the company and
Yeah,
not get in trouble for it, they would do it 10 years later. So
that's
I
right.
think it's like you said, it's good to feel that grief. It's good to live in that moment, but then, and again, I don't think there's a timeline on it.
No.
Sooner rather than later, you are able to be free and move on to your next chapter. you know
Yeah.
I mean, and imagine it's kind of like your book. If you didn't write the last chapter or you skip chapters, it would kind of be very,
Yes.
incomplete. And so
Exactly.
I look at these things as like a chapter,
Mhm.
in somebody's life. And so, if you can't get on to the next chapter, I think that's where, people like us are out there to help you to be able
Yes.
to work through that and move into that next chapter. So,
And I like the way that you're using the word move because I do use moves with an S as an acronym. And the first part of me helping people kind of get through that shift is let's go through a mindset reset because we're
mhm,
going to have to reset our mind to take ownership of what's happening. I want you to feel that grief, be very mindful of it, feel the hurt. Because if you
right.
don't go through it and you don't sit with it for a minute, you don't know what it feels like to move from
Yeah.
it. And you
Yep.
can do that through meditation is what I used. And it was
Mhm.
probably part of the best solution I had so that you can quiet your mind. Exercise, bring everything back to making you feel good as a person. That's the M. And
Right.
then the O is what I think you're talking about. This is why so many people come back still angry because they did not know how to own another title. They
Sure.
were given a title, they were given a task at their job under that title, and that's all they identified with. And
Right.
so I don't care if you were CEO, CFO, COO, contributor, whatever your title was
Sure.
at that company, you need to be able to move past that and say, okay, I need to own a new title. And I just want to say blanketly, be the CEO of your life, take control of
Right.
your life. And then
Wow.
the V part is value those relationships you've built over time. You built a lot of good relationships, value them and create a personal board of directors. Have 5 people on that board and use them as mentors. Really
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
The E part is if you're going to be an entrepreneur, evaluate your money. Evaluate your money situation because it's going to change. I like to say that because everyone has a relationship with money that's different. And so when I worked in the when I had my financial background, I would always say to people or listen to their story. For me, my parents came from humble beginnings. I came from humble beginnings. They did, their parents did,
Sure.
their parents. You have a relationship with money that's been trickled down to you. And
Right.
it's up to you to understand what that is and how to change it when you become an entrepreneur to work for your benefit. And then the S is the most important part, and that's just share your story. I've never shared my story so much until I became an entrepreneur. And that is just because people are listening, like your platform of individuals. They're
Sure.
just listening to what happens if I go through this. What did she use to get out of it?
Sure.
How can we
Yep.
use the same thing? So I like that you were using the word move, because I actually use moves as an acronym to help people get through that transition.
That's awesome. So I forgot, what's the M again?
The M is a mindset reset.
Okay, that's where that came. So we have mindset reset, we
Mhm.
have own, value, evaluate, and share.
Yes.
So that is so cool. And if you're listening and any of those are resonating with you, that's why we're here, to be able to help you kind of, navigate and maneuver those waters. And, I think it's awesome to be able to find people that have gone through this before,
Yeah.
you know, whether it's a physical ailment, whether it's a job situation, whatever it is, it's so comforting to find somebody that's gone through what you're going through, because they're on the back end and they can help you navigate some of those tough spots. Not to say that you won't have tough spots, because entrepreneurship, obviously you will. But the goal here is to be able to be more in control of
Yeah.
where you take this, as opposed to have those corporate handcuffs, like Katrina said. So, again, if you're listening and it's resonating, I always encourage you to do something with it rather than just sit on it. Because the longer you sit, you go on to your next task, whatever you're doing right now, just convince yourself, tell yourself, I'm going to do this one thing. And maybe it's just a matter of jumping on Katrina's website. Maybe it's calling, or whatever it is. But that's really, I think, what's the hardest part, is that first chunk of momentum.
Oh yeah. It's
And so,
scary.
yeah, it is. And somebody told me a great analogy of, think how hard it is if you had a train, a locomotive sitting on a track by itself, how hard it is to get that moving. But once it's moving, it's so much easier to keep it moving.
Yeah.
And that's the hardest part, is that first initial, like, I want to do something with this.
Yeah.
So I just, again, want to encourage you, as we go through this stuff today, to do something with what you're hearing.
I
Now
like
you're
it.
accountable for it anyway. So you might as well do something, she's already got you there. So, that's awesome. So, what did I want to kind of jump into your book a little bit here?
Sure.
I another word, again, we're talking breakups. Now we're stealing things. So, I mean, there's these words that I love. The words, they're just really edgy words. So, thank you for doing that. So, what does it mean to steal your skills from corporate? What were you thinking there?
I was thinking that I learned so much. I was constantly doing presentations.
Okay.
So some things that started becoming easy because I learned to do those things. So presentation skills, just teaching, like, I'd always have to train my team that I would have.
Mhm.
A lot of those things, you just take them with you when you're going to create your own career, because those are the things that will help you in your new career.
Sure.
So just, and I use the play on steal, but these are things that you've acquired, the skills that you've acquired over time. And then there may be some skills that you're looking to acquire. Just take it, like take everything you have. That's what that means. It means take everything you have and build what you have as a career. I know I like to think about those individuals. Have you ever seen the shows on maybe a Netflix as a reality show where they have individuals who could organize these closets and they're in beautiful colors? Every book is lined up beautifully.
Yeah.
I can't do that
Yeah.
ever. And so that's a skill set that they have that I don't have. And they
Yeah.
probably didn't even know they had it. They do it with ease. They just
Sure.
do it with ease. So there's something that people are doing with ease, and you don't even recognize that that's your skill. That's a talent that you have that maybe other people could hire you for.
Sure.
I see
Absolutely.
people who I see people like barbers.
Yeah.
Man, that's a skill. I told my son's barber once, I'm like, I'm gonna cut his hair. The barber said, please do.
Yeah.
You'll appreciate me much more when you start, because he
There
makes
you
it look
go.
easy. We just
Yeah.
finished watching the Olympics. They make that stuff look
Oh, yeah.
easy.
Exactly.
So that's what it is. So people have these skills that they make look easy because they do it with ease. And I'm sure plenty of them have sat at their desk at one point and said, Now, if I can do this part of my job all day, I would be golden.
Sure. Yep.
Those are the things that come easy to you.
Yep.
And then there's stuff like, I can't do that, because you
Yep.
have to come to grips with those things as well. For me, it was admin. I'm like, oh, I can do it, but I don't want to.
Mine was the close second to that, and that's accounting. So,
Yeah.
oh my
See?
gosh, I got a great group of people that take care of it all for me.
See?
But,
You know exactly what I
oh
mean.
yeah, oh totally,
Yeah.
absolutely. But so I want to ask this for the people that are listening that might be like they're in corporate still,
Okay.
and they are thinking like along that lines of, what am I good at? Because I hear that a lot from people that I taught, and I help people just because I like to help people. I
Yeah.
don't do it like you do it for a living, but somebody will come to me and they're like, whether it's somebody that I'm training or whatever, they'll be like, I'm not happy with what I'm doing. I want to do something else.
Gotcha.
And they kind of expect me to have like, oh, well, here's 4 points that you got to do. And then you'll have your magic, it's almost like a magic wand.
Yeah.
They're looking for that, and I'm not looking for that from you. I'm trying to understand when somebody's got that they have that mentality, what's like the next step? How do you think about what am I really good at, or what do I like to do? Do you have any tips for those people
Yeah.
at that?
You have to ask yourself, what problem are you solving?
Okay.
That helps a lot. When you discover, okay, I'm very good at this, or I think I'm good at this, the next question you should ask yourself is, what problem would I be solving if I did this? And that should help you clarify some of it.
Okay.
So here's another good example. I have one lady that I coached, and we kind of did an assessment. She knew what she wanted to do, but we kind of did an assessment trying to pull the skills that she had. So I'm listening to her, and she's talking about, and by the way, she wanted to be a college admissions advisor. So she was really good at helping kids get through that whole process. So we're just talking about her skills, and she's listing what she thinks she has. And then we started toying over the idea of her being a strategist. So she's like, no. So she scratched it out. I'm not really a strategist. And I'm like, okay. I said, think of it this way, because your home life applies as well. Your personal life applies to the skills that you have.
Sure.
You just don't acquire things. You just don't acquire things from corporate. There's some other things. So I said, so I'm just listening to you. You have been a single mom your child's entire life. She's a senior in one of the top colleges right now. You had to get her from here to there. And I said, you don't think there was strategy involved? And she's like, I guess I never thought of it that way.
Sure.
Because she just took that site and just thought it was right, whatever her job did. But no, these are things that you have in life. You have to look at a different way as well. So I just, I look at people and I kind of say, what's that next step? What problem are you solving? Her problem that she was solving was, a lot of parents want to go through, or, when they're sending their kids to college, they just don't know where to start.
Yeah.
There's the schools, only my son's school did a great job at scholarships, at helping them find scholarships. They did not do the best job at telling or helping them understand what schools to go to and why.
Sure. Okay.
And so that's what she was good at, helping parents pull all of that to see what could be the best selection for your child.
So what did she do?
She did. She's an advisor now.
Oh, and she's loving it then?
She loves it because she's in her space.
Yeah.
But she spent her entire career in higher education. So that those are some skills that she picked up in her higher education.
So I'm assuming that this takes some time, which, to kind of unpack and to, get real with yourself.
Yep.
And that tends to be where I start to see the brake lights go on for the entrepreneurs, because they want to go do something. I remember hearing about, don't just, my parents, they would say, don't just stand there, do something, I was like, growing up, that's what they told me, right?
Yeah.
And then you go to like your first job and they say, don't stand there, do something, right?
Yep.
Now, when you get into be my age now, I'm looking and I'm like, don't just do something, stand there.
Yeah.
you know,
Be
and it's kind of
still.
like a different motivation. It's all different, but I tell you, it's hard because you have these entrepreneurial juices that are flowing that just go do, just do something, right?
Yeah.
I don't care
Yeah.
what it is, just go do something. So
Yeah.
if you're listening, you're going to have that, glitch, so to speak. You're going to have that, be like, I just want to do something. And the
Yeah.
tendency to dump this. And that, I think, is probably the hardest thing to do, is to sit and do nothing and journal, write something down,
I agree.
meditate, like Katrina said, do something other than just keep moving forward, because you never know if you're moving in the right direction until you kind of have that, that
It kind of look, if
thought.
your audience members think of it this way, it's kind of a wave, and you keep going through this wave, just trying to figure out where you fit.
Yeah.
And I was talking to another lady. She was actually asking me a bunch of questions, and she's like, Katrina, what's your green light? And this may be good for your audience to
Yeah.
understand too. She said, what's your green light? And I'm like, I don't know what that is. And she said, what consistently showed up in your life over and over?
Mm,
Because that's where you're going to end up settling,
wow.
because it consistently shows up.
Yeah.
So when I first got out of corporate, I went to work as an independent contractor. And then I went into another position that it was still independent contracting work, but I still had enough freedom to start to write my book and those things.
Sure.
But even when I look back at those careers or those jobs, what still sat with me is my ability to help people train people and be that relationship manager to coach them through some things. I do that naturally. So
Sure.
that's my green light, my green light.
Gotcha.
And I go back to my sister, who kept a journal for me from kindergarten to 12th grade.
Oh
And if
man.
you look at grade, starting around the third grade, it
Okay.
said, I want to be a teacher. And it just kept saying, I want to teach, I want to teach, I want to teach.
Nice.
But prior to that, I wanted to be the first girl baseball player. I wanted to be,
Well,
I
it's
had
still
the
time. Come on,
I had
there's
the
still time.
imagination. No, there's no
Well,
time, babe.
yeah, come on now. How do other people, let's just say for somebody that's listening that isn't comfortable, calling you or calling me, or isn't comfortable talking to somebody that, they don't know. I
Yeah.
mean, I think that around you, the people around you probably have a pretty good feel for what your strengths are.
Yes.
So, my next book I'm working on right now is about business blind spots. And so
Oh,
I know that people have blind spots. So you listening, you might say, I'm not good at anything. I hear that a lot. I'm not good at anything, or I'm not exceptionally good at anything.
ooh,
I might be
good
like
one.
in a utility infielder where I can play first base, second base, third base, shortstop. I can play a lot, but I haven't really mastered one of those spots. I'm just wondering if there is a way to harness the talents around you to kind of ask them, what am I good at? Find somebody that you trust, find
Yeah.
somebody that you're okay being vulnerable with, to really check in with them. Is that something that you feel would work, Katrina, on their end?
Absolutely. You hit the nail on the head. I tell people to go back to their past performance reviews.
Okay,
I tell them to talk to
that's a good
people
idea.
who are around them, because those people may point out their blind spots,
Yeah,
right? They may point out their blind spots,
right.
and just kind of really listen to those. Go to the people that you trust, and bring those comments with you, and say, why do you think I'm good at that? And then ask yourself, why do you think I'm good at that? Because of something led you to be able to do that.
Yeah.
But that's an excellent idea.
Wow,
Excellent
that's
idea.
cool. Well, and I think about like what you just said. My vision is the iceberg, and there's a little chunk of ice above the water, but the vast majority of that iceberg is underneath the water.
Yeah.
So if somebody says to me, or I say to somebody, what are you good at? That's going to be above the water, right? It's going to be
Uh-huh.
what everybody sees. But I like how you're kind of digging deeper and saying, why are you good at that? Or what problem does that solve?
Yeah.
This is really going to be a journey for some that they may never have taken before, where you're challenging yourself in new ways. And that's what I think is so helpful, to have somebody come alongside you so that you make sure that you're on the right path. Because you might say, I mean, what problem am I solving? What am I good at? What do I like to do? You know, you ask a teenage kid that is addicted to video games and they all want to like be working for a video game company, you know,
Yeah,
creating video games, right? It's
yeah.
like, well, that's great, but boy, I tell you what, you know, dig a little deeper with them and they have zero thought for the most part really into, you know, why they've chose that, how are they going to make it work, what's the
Yeah.
next step, you know.
And it's
So
kind of people on the side, like you said, that
yeah,
help mold that thought for them. So there, I had gone to a teachers conference and I met a bunch of principals here. And there
yeah,
was one lady was intrigued because she was like, I'm coming up on retirement. I'm just thinking, I'm still young. I'm thinking of what am I going to do next?
yep,
I've just been teaching the whole time.
sure,
And so as she's talking to me, and this is where I'm good at, as I'm talking to her, she says, just telling me her story of,
mhm,
the education, the systems that she's been in and who she taught. And I said, you do know there's a slew of individuals out there who, especially after the pandemic or during the pandemic, who had to become home teachers and had no clue how to do it.
mm,
They don't know how to set
sure.
up a curriculum. They don't know how to do. I said, so have you ever thought about being like a coach to some of the parents or
Oh,
some
that's
of the
cool.
people who do homeschooling to make
Sure,
sure
sure.
they're on track, to make
Yep,
sure? And she's like, I never ever thought of that.
yep,
But
wow,
there's a career, and I think that's where my insurance background comes from, because I've seen every career because they need insurance.
yeah,
But
oh my gosh,
it's some of those things that you think about and like take your talents and help someone else with that,
sure,
is all I'm saying. I've gotten into a new spot or new space in my career,
okay,
which is helping young individuals. So just bringing up programs to help them identify what career do you want and throw out some things that they may not have seen before.
sure,
They probably didn't know that there was a college admissions advisor to help. They probably didn't know that they knew you could be a chef, but they may not have known the business side of that.
sure,
So I'm into the public schools now. And then today I just had, a conversation with city colleges to kind of pull together a program for them as well. But
that's
yeah,
great,
I'm just trying to help the younger mind get to that point so that they can find a career choice and knowing that it's
sure.
going to change. Nothing
Yeah.
is solid. Nothing is solid. It's going to move through that wave until you find your green light.
Well, and what how did you, so just if you can maybe, you know, pull the curtain back a little bit, because people are just listening to you thinking, wow, that was a great idea. Where did you come up with that idea? I think I run into people, I'm sure you do as well, you know, that they struggle with an idea. They struggle with the creativity part. They're struggling to come up with something. You
Yeah.
know, they may have an idea, but they don't know how to, you know, turn that idea into five different ideas like you're doing. I mean,
Yeah.
is that just a natural skill for you, or is that something that you learned, or what do you attribute that to for yourself?
Um, it's a little bit of both.
Okay.
So I am curious by design.
Okay.
And so
Good.
I've always been very curious to see how things work and how does
Okay.
it work and what if I did it this way. As a matter of fact, I coach on the what if theory because so many people are on the opposite side of what if. They're
Sure.
like, what if I don't have enough fans? What if my business doesn't grow? What if this? And I always say the universe is balanced. There's two sides. But what if you do become successful? What
Yep.
if you do? So I tend to lean on that side of it. So I try things and just to see if it hits. If it doesn't, I don't feel like I failed. I feel like I
Sure.
tried and something else may have come up. So for
Sure.
those people, maybe it takes them to write it down and just start brainstorming around it. What if this happened with that? For me, it was more of what am I trying to do? What problem am I trying to solve? So I always stick with that.
Yep.
And my problem was getting corporate people to move into this environment where they feel like they've made a transition. And then I start thinking they're not the only ones transitioning.
Yeah.
I have a son here who graduated high school, started off in college. So he did his first year in college last year, but then decided I want to be an entrepreneur.
Mm,
He had gone to college to, got a
cool.
scholarship in photography. And
Nice.
it's like, I want to make this into something. So I'm like, okay, so now I gotta eat my own words here.
Too bad. Oh
Too
man, it
bad.
works for everybody, you know, except for the Roddy family. So we're not
Right.
doing that for
I was
you
like,
guys.
wait,
Everyone else this works for. So
I wasn't talking about my kid. I was talking
yeah,
about other
exactly.
kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm determined to help him figure out or understand how this could turn into his actual career. And
Sure.
man, if I knew what I knew at this age, when I was his age, I'm
Sure.
like, I would have had a pretty successful career. So I just want to be able to teach that. And when I approach the schools, that's all I explain to them. I'm sorry,
Wow.
is that most people may not want to go to college or can't afford college, but they
Sure.
do want a career as an entrepreneur.
Sure.
That's never introduced to them. And so let me be that program. And they said,
Wow.
yeah, we'd like that.
That's
I did
awesome.
this, I took the same approach to city colleges. I'm like, look, there are some people graduating that want to be entrepreneurs. What programs do you have in place or what structure do you have? And
Yeah.
then that started our discussion. So yeah,
That's so
it
cool.
gets pretty exciting.
Well, and I was just asked to teach one and be a guest at one of these entrepreneur classes for one of the colleges around here in Wisconsin. And it was a virtual class. And unfortunately, nobody was there. I mean, there was very few people, you know,
Yeah.
and maybe it's oversaturated. I don't know. But whenever I can learn about another entrepreneur story, I'm going to walk away with something.
Yeah.
You know, I know that I'm going to walk away with something. Now, I
Yeah.
also know when I was younger that I was thinking I'm going to teach somebody something, right? And that's, you know, I'm about a year and a half into my podcast. And I remember my first episode was my best friend, good friend, Wayne Breitbart, that does LinkedIn. You know, he's a LinkedIn guy, wrote a book on it.
Okay.
And so he's my first guest, and I'm like, you know, thinking I'm going to tell him a thing or two. And it lasted about 30 seconds. I realized, man, this whole podcast thing is me learning. I'm just lucky enough to be asking the questions. This is, you know, so I started, full disclosure, thinking I was going to tell them, and it lasted like no time at all, where it flipped around. So, you know, there's some attitude pieces that you have to work through as an entrepreneur as well, right? Because you can think one thing, but at the end of the day, you know what, it doesn't always end up that way. So that's
Dave, just think about the individuals who are coming from corporate who had pretty I work with high profile, high end clients that come from a high performing, and they come out and they know everything. You can't tell them nothing. They know I already know how to do that. I can set up my own business. I can do that. And about 6 months to a year down the road, they see all these other people who are surpassing them, and they didn't even, you know, then they stop and say, I probably need some help.
Well, and sometimes it's too late. So I'm glad your was it E in Moves was talking about the money?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. You know, so I'm glad that you have that in there, because, you know, there's probably a false sense. I know that I had this sense years ago that, hey, I'm gonna, you know, I know my daughter always laughs at this. When she graduated from college, she had a marketing degree, and she had this kind of thought process in her mind. I remember she graduated on a Sunday. We went to the, you know, to the event, and she kind of had this thought of, I said, so what are you going to do now? You know, she's like, I'm not really sure. But I think in her mind, she had this thought that Monday morning, Harley, Kohl's, GE, all these companies were going to call her and say, oh my gosh, hey, Dana, congratulations. I hear that you graduated. I'd like to throw my hat in the ring, you know, for you. I think that she had that. And I never really wanted to ask her because I was too afraid. So Dana, I know you're listening. So anyway, I love you. But it's just one of those things that I don't want someone to think falsely that is, if I quit my job and put a shingle up, man, it's going to be instant success. And so I think that, you know, not everybody makes it on their first business, second. I mean, you know, I don't know what the latest statistics are, but there's a lot of companies that don't make it.
And they should also understand that while they're building their business, they can also build capital. We're in a gig economy. You can still do another side hustle, and then this becomes your main thing, because you're going to have to do that. One thing that, especially people coming from a corporate environment, is you have to learn to humble yourself. You're going to have to be very humble. You're going to have to take on maybe jobs that you didn't want to do just because you're trying to build your business. I think when I did write my book, they told us right off the bat, yes, you're going to make some money with the book because it's a product for you now. But don't think you're going to retire of this book.
You don't retire on those royalty checks that come every few months?
No, you may be able to buy a pair of shoes or
right. Isn't that
one
funny?
sneaker, but
exactly. Yep.
Yeah, well, there is. That's a good one. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, absolutely. And Wayne, the guy, like the LinkedIn guy, it was awesome. He told me, he's like, because he wrote a book, and he said, this is a really expensive calling card. That's kind of what he calls it, you know, and it's like, really, there's so many things that so many directions that you can go. And I think that's why, entrepreneurs that surround themselves with smart people, up front, I think I think that was Steve Jobs that said they don't hire, dumb people and tell them what to do. They hire smart people so the smart people can tell them what to do. That's really what we're looking for, and so I think that's just a cool thought process to connect and surround yourself with as many smart people as you possibly can.
Absolutely. And I want people to think of it this way as an entrepreneur. Well, let me take a step back and think when you're in a job, you sit at your office or your desk and you do your job because that's what you were hired to do. Your neighbor does their job. This person on the left side does their job. Person in front of you. Everybody has a different job that they do for the company to make it one. When you become an entrepreneur, you're doing all of their jobs and your own job, right? So now it's up to you to create that environment from corporate, still again, to create that environment. So you have to bring these smart people on board because, like you said, you're not good at accounting. So you have to bring someone else who is good at that.
Absolutely.
Maybe we don't have an HR person. You have to go find that person. And that's when networking becomes so important. Because you have to find a person. Now, finding the right person could be a bit skewed because of social media. Everybody says they're the right person.
Exactly.
So you got to weed through all of that and feel what feels good to you. Who can you trust based on your values or who works the same way you do? But you are entitled to create that same team of people around you as an entrepreneur. Then all of a sudden you have your company is thriving off of them. But guess what? Now their company is thriving with you in it, and it just goes on. These little pods are built that way. I call them communities.
Cool. Well, that's so cool.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know where else, in 50 minutes, we're going to talk about stealing and we're going to talk about breaking up. This is so cool. I so appreciate you hanging out. I got 2 questions for you, Katrina, and then I'm going to let you go. So I want you, Katrina's tip of the week. What would it be?
Okay, my tip of the week to your audience would be, if you are persistent, you'll get it.
Okay.
If you're consistent, you'll keep it.
Ooh, look at that. Holy cow. Good job. Hey, feel free to leave at 5 today for that great insight, okay? That is so cool. Well, thank you. Now here's the tough one, okay?
Okay.
Tell us one thing that most people don't know about you that you feel comfortable sharing.
That I am not a triplet.
I'm not a triplet, okay.
I'm not a triplet. However, me and my 2 sisters share the same birthday.
No way.
Yeah.
So like do you have twins in you or all 3 same day, different year?
Different year.
Oh my, there's got to be a term for this. Okay, we got to make money on this, Katrina.
I started by saying I'm not a triplet.
I know, but we got to make money on this. Oh my gosh, this was awesome. So you and your sisters had the exact same birthday, 3 different years.
3 different years. Well, my oldest sister is 10 years older than I am. Then the other one is 8 years. There's 6 of us total. So there's 3 boys and 3 girls, and all 3 girls, we share the same birthday.
Wow, that is so cool. See, now where else, audience, are you going to get that?
But on America's Got Talent.
Exactly. Oh my gosh. What a perfect spot to end. Stealing, breaking up, and not triplets, but having all the same birthdays. Man, this doesn't get any better. If this doesn't push us over the edge, nothing will. So, hey, Katrina, thanks so much for hanging out. If this kind of, spoke to them,
Yeah.
if there's something, wrestling in them that's uneasy, that they really want to learn more about,
Yeah.
what you said, what's the best way for people to get in contact with you?
So I'm on all social media platforms as K Roddy, and that's spelled the letter K and then Roddy 65,
6'5".
as in June 5th. That's my birthday.
Wow.
So K Roddy 65 on all social media platforms, or you can always go to my website and you can click on sign up for an appointment to have a 15-minute conversation. And that is thecorporatebreakup.com.
Wow, that is so cool. Well, thank you so much. I took a ton of notes like I always do.
Oh, thank you.
I learned what golden handcuffs were.
Yeah.
Now I got to put this moves into action. There's sometimes I wish I didn't do these because there's all this accountability on me now that I got to do something with
You
this.
gotta do it. You gotta do it.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much for unpacking the corporate breakup. I had a great time, and I appreciate your vulnerability and sharing your story.
Thank you.
And again, you know what? If you're listening, I just encourage you to just, listen to how safe this place is.
Yeah.
And, Katrina's here to help you to be able to navigate those waters. Why in the world you'd want to do it yourself? I know that we as entrepreneurs, we have an ego, we can do it ourselves. And I get that if you can't, get yourself to pick up the phone or, click a couple buttons. If you can, what a great place to start is just, talk to somebody for 15 minutes, and just get a little bit more insight on a couple of things that might help you. You never know where it's gonna lead. Worst case is you'll learn how to steal and you'll get way better at breaking up. So with that, I will say thank you so much and hope to see you again soon.
Thank you. Thanks to you. And congratulations on your success with your book. Can't wait
Thank
for the
you.
next one.
Yep, you as well. I'm waiting for your book as well. Now I got to learn how to steal. So that's my next purchase of your book. So thank you. We'll talk soon.
Thank you for having me. Bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.